Welcome to Return on Insights, the show where candid conversations with bold founders and leaders spark actionable insights for your business. I'm David Lindover.
And I'm Erin Abatangelo. Each week, we pull back the curtain with leaders who are scaling teams and shaping the future, sharing the insights that create impact far beyond the bottom line.
Discover how high-performing companies build enduring cultures, inspire teams to think bigger, and turn vision into action. If you see storytelling as your strategic advantage, you're in the right place. Welcome to Return on Insights podcast, where we explore leadership, technology, and innovation that drive meaningful change across industries and communities. My name is David Lindover, and I'm your host for today's episode, which features an expert who specializes in bringing complex technology projects back on track for nonprofits and public organizations. Our guest is Scott Billows, the founder and CEO of BelMar Consulting, a leading Salesforce implementation partner, empowering nonprofits and government agencies with tailored tech solutions. He's got over 2 decades of experience and a passion for innovation, and offers invaluable insights on navigating digital transformation with a focus on impact and efficiency. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thanks for having me, David.
My first question: the most common reason Salesforce implementations fail, especially in nonprofits and public sectors.
Yeah, well, a great question to kick this off. It's one we unfortunately intersect a little too often, and I think the main reason that these projects fail is there's just misalignment between what a leadership team is expecting and what they've been promised through a sales cycle. So oftentimes, these organizations are seeking out a Salesforce-based solution, and they are interacting with Salesforce. They're getting connected to an implementer or a partner, and through that journey, there is just a misalignment in terms of what they believe they need and what they end up getting. And so somewhere through that journey of implementation, we will, in many cases, get a call from an organization that's distressed and needs support. And I believe it's something that can be totally avoided, but unfortunately, it's pretty common out there.
That's too bad. How does BelMar approach rescuing these failed projects and then ensuring client success once they're kind of halfway down the track?
Yeah, well, I think the starting point is just deal with reality. So, when we get involved in a failed project, and that really fits into a couple of categories. One is it could be in flight and it's failing, or they may have gone live and they are now seeing it as a failed project. Really, there's the first and foremost is getting very clear executive alignment, and in some cases getting board alignment with this is what we intended, and we would then do a complete analysis to say, okay, well, here's the delta, here's what you wanted, here's where you are, and we will just be very pragmatic and communicate what they would need to do to get back on track. And in some cases, that is, you need to realign your expectations. What you were sold is not what you can get based on, your budget, timeline, internal capabilities, and, there's other categories there. But, just this, like, being very frank to say what you want, you're not going to get in a time frame that makes sense. Or here is a path for you to take to get to where you want to go to. So we really believe it's got to be rooted in reality, and it's got to be rooted in the very, very deeply in the minds of the leadership team, so that they can support it internally. And if they choose to have our firm help them get to where they want to get to, we're going to just continue to have those conversations along the way. Because in any IT project, there is misalignment, there's drift, there's scope creep. There's all these things that can lead you off track. And if we're getting involved, we're gonna guarantee they're going to get back on track. But in order to do that, they need to be firmly aligned internally, and we're going to make sure they stay aligned.
Are there a couple of tactics that you use So you've been engaged by an organization that's in distress, and you've discovered why they're in distress. They've agreed to, the alignment and the proper expectations based on your insights. But, what prevents you from going back off track? What one or two things can people who are listening to this podcast in different, involved in different projects, but large projects, what can they do to mitigate, those risks?
Yeah. It's a great question, and I would say the answer to that is if you're a leader in an organization and you've identified that this project is failing or has gone off course, it may not be the fault of your team. It's the fault of all parties that are involved in that implementation. So when we get involved, if we've been engaged to bring somebody back on track, I shared it a minute ago. We are going to require that their executive leadership are involved, not in the delivery of the project, not in the day-to-day details, but we are doing exec alignment calls throughout the remainder of that project to ensure that the project is being supported by the organization at the executive level, and not just lip service to it, but actual involvement. And then on our side, we're going to have one of our leadership team involved to ensure that from our side, our team is responding appropriately. So, the failure of these is it's incremental, it's gradual, and it happens over a time horizon that sometimes is measured in many months, and so it at times is difficult to see the drift. And but once you start to drift, like there's got to be a course correction, and there's got to be something significant to get that back on track. And so we just believe that it's got to be supported at the executive level, and we've had great success when that happens.
Okay. So unique challenges, what are they for public sector organizations that, are looking at technology-driven transformations? Are they different from in the private sector?
Yeah, our customer cohort, we work in two verticals, and I see there are a lot of similarities between them. So we work in both nonprofit or charitable organizations, and we work in public sector organizations. The customer cohort within public sector that we work in is sort of in that middle tier, broader public sector entities. So we're typically not going after the large multi-year transformation projects that the big four are tackling. And so what we see across, and I'll generalize this across all of our customers, and this includes public sector, is that in most cases, they are not going through transformation projects on a yearly basis. And so the challenges that they face is because they don't have the reps that, say, a for-profit organization may have, where they're constantly innovating, they're constantly investing, and if they implement and it doesn't work, well, they'll just keep going and they'll until they get a solution. Where in the organizations that we work with, many of them they don't do it often, and when they do it, their expectations are very high, and it's just it's you get this dynamic of we must deliver, but we only get one shot to do this, and so there's just this I guess inexperience and added pressure to the mix within this customer base, and so it's something that we've really perfected. We specialize in this industry, and so we understand that going in. We communicate that to them as we're going into this, and we help them align and stay on track to get to the end successfully.
How do they respond to you, advising them that, they're new to all of this? How do they, do they consider that and kind of behave in a specific way
Sure.
going forward? Or is that a challenge for you to get that message across?
Yeah, I mean, it varies based on the organization. I think for the most part, they're self-aware to understand that, this is not something that they do every year. So, when we bring that up in a conversation, I would say most of them, if not all of them, would agree, yeah, that, we fit into that category. And then we just presented to them that, because of that, there are certain risks that you are unaware of, and it's our job to advise you and to ensure that we are working together to achieve the outcome that you're looking for. And so I think when presented that way, I mean, we don't get a lot of pushback on that. Typically, it's more there's acknowledgement of it, and then when we actually get into a project, the execution from their side is doesn't always match what they had committed to. So that's maybe a bigger challenge for us is the self-awareness. Yep, that's a problem. Sure, we can deal with that, and we'll address that internally. But the actual execution of that is not always to the level that it needs to be. But most of these organizations, they're very good-hearted. They're great. The people are great. Their intentions are good. They're and this is both public sector as well as nonprofit. They're mission-driven, so they're very committed to serving the constituents or the communities that they're serving, um, and for the most part are committed to leaning into whatever recommendations that we would provide.
So, switching gears a bit, how do you maintain your kind of this personalized service? I'll call it personalized. This engagement with the company, with their leadership. I mean, the organization and their leadership. How do you do that at scale?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I certainly myself or other leaders on our team, can't be involved in every project. So what we've done is we've designed our organization in such a way that we have teams of people within our org that are executing and delivering on a project. So these people know each other, they trust each other, they work well together, and they're specialists in a particular domain. And so we have a high degree of trust that that team is going to execute well because they've seen this project before and they've implemented it before in many cases multiple times. But we do align a layer of our leadership team to the project and engage with that leadership team. And typically projects are running anywhere between 3 to 12 months. So that's a typical project time horizon for us. And it's a monthly sync up with that leadership team. And so it's not a big time commitment, but it's more just anchoring back to what was the plan, what is the vision, what are the expected outcomes, and we've just found that model has worked incredibly well. And so, as we scale, we just continue to empower leaders within our organization to take on that role, and we just find that it works really well.
What advice do you have for nonprofits struggling to modernize on tight budgets?
Yeah, well, I think in this day and age, everybody is on what we'll call a tight budget or a tighter budget than maybe they have had over the last 5 years. We certainly have seen it in the last 2 years, to be specific, where there's less money being spent, but the needs are as great as they've ever been. So advice that I would give, actionable advice that I would give to a nonprofit organization is ensure that your board is aligned to the vision in terms of this budget. Because if they're aligned to this, they will support it. I would, if I answered that question a little differently, what would derail an organization from being able to move forward? Oftentimes, it's that the leadership and the board being aligned around how they are going to go and solve a problem. And so if there's alignment there, we see these projects are well supported. they find the funding for it, and they move forward. So that to me is the biggest one, is that board alignment. And that is actually something that, we help these organizations that we're working with very early in our relationship with them, is to advise them on how they get their board aligned. Because the last thing that you want is, you've got your team internally who are excited about moving forward. It's been socialized within the organization that they're going to be doing this. They've got their leadership team on board, and then they hit a brick wall when it comes to funding. So, despite the economic, challenges that may exist, get your board aligned, and this project will be supported.
Yeah, great advice. Last question: future trends in the nonprofit and public sector with respect to digital transformations. Are there, one or two trends that you're watching?
The theme right now is do more with less. Tech-enabled organizations are going to outcompete those that are not. There's really, I would say 2 or 3 big trends that we're tracking. One is, if we happen to specialize in a Salesforce-based solution for these organizations, we're seeing sort of a broadening within an organization, sort of the adoption of a broader set of capabilities. So that's number one, and that could manifest itself as they're adding. If they've initially implemented Salesforce to address a program or a fundraising use case, it's now broadening, beyond that one use case into others. Another is communication. So communicating with stakeholders, constituents, funders, and doing that in a very robust way. So utilizing, the delivery of communication to the right person at the right time with the right message. And so this communication strategy. And then, I think the big one that is on the table is AI. In our sector, we're still in the very, very early days of this. The adoption of this is just starting, but it's certainly a trend that we're following, and we're just kind of in that first inning of the game, if you will, of starting to enable organizations from an AI perspective. But I think those 3 are the big ones we're seeing.
Scott, very informative. Really appreciate your time. Look forward to welcoming you on future podcasts. Thank you.
Thanks, David.